Perfect Turd Podcast, episode 162, Lamar, Pact of Vengeance.
Dun, 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 dun. Well, Joe, shout out to Len Kabasinski. We interviewed him about this movie, and not only this movie, but his career
Yeah, he was
as a
working on
micro.
this movie, right?
Yeah, he was working on it. I think he was like, what was it in like post-production and everything like that? He was finishing it up. We interviewed him about it, and this is the final result. It's on Tubi TV. But yeah, and of course, he has a Patreon where a lot of people saw it beforehand, but now it's to the world. Everybody can see Pact of Vengeance.
Good old-fashioned revenge plot, I would say.
Well, yeah, yes, yeah, basically.
Well, we start off with our categories, Lamar, like we always do. What did we rate the story?
Well, we're probably gonna mention a lot about like that nostalgic feeling, because it has that feeling, like you said, of revenge. Basic plot is this. There's this group of people. They're like, they work hard together at Champion's Garage, correct?
Yep.
Champion's Garage. And there's a new gang in town, and they want some money from this garage. And they're like, no. And they fight them off at first, but then they come back and they hurt I think she's the youngest person there. What's her name? Damn it, Joe. I was depending on you. But she's the youngest woman that works at that garage. And she's the granddaughter of, I guess, the owner of the garage. And so they take matters into their own hands, Joe. They go after the Black Roses gang and exact vengeance.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
I guess the plot is like they work in a garage as mechanics, but they're like former Black Op agents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right? So they can kick ass and stuff. So yeah, it's a throwback. It's like an 80s, like, you killed my brother, you paralyzed my brother, so we're gonna come get you plot. So I appreciate that sometimes, right?
Yes.
What do you give it?
I give it a 1. Good
point?
Old 80s revenge, that kind of thing. And then we're going to get into the characters. Yeah, boy, oh boy. What do you give it, Joe?
Yeah, I'll give it a 1 point just for that. It's simple. It's not long. It flows enough. And it's just, revenge. 80s revenge.
Everybody likes revenge. I mean, come on. You can't get no better. Yes.
Well, we got to talk about the characters next. Lamar, what do we rate these characters?
Well, in this movie, it's a rule that all the good guys, or most of them, know freaking karate, martial arts, and special weapons. Because I would say the father figure, Zion, he is played by Leo Fong.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
This was his last film.
It was, yeah.
So rest in peace, Leo Fong.
Also, before you continue,
go.
Naming him Zian, tribute to Kickboxer, even though it's spelt different, but I thought maybe that was a tribute to Kickboxer.
That would be nice. Yes. There you go. Then we have, of course, Len Kabasinski. He's kind of like the leader of the group under Zian. And then Zian's granddaughter is the one that gets attacked. And I have to say, this is probably one of the toughest people I've ever seen on freaking film. There's a stupid meme that says, like, Rey from Star Wars, name a character who has gone through more. They haven't seen this woman. Like, what happens to her? She gets attacked.
Yeah.
Well, first, she beats up 2 men by herself.
Yeah, well, there's a scene in there where she's like, she can punch really hard, I guess.
Yeah.
She just punches the guy in his stomach once, and it almost, takes him out. Yeah, a bunch of stuff happens to her. They even slit her throat, but she survives.
She survives, and then she's in the hospital, and then they try to kill her there, and then she escapes.
Yeah.
Great representation of the undying spirit of women, Joe. So
yes.
There you go. Yes. And then we have, of course, like the techie woman.
Mm-hmm.
She does a lot of stuff. And then, the wrestler. Go ahead. I know you want to.
The librarian, Peter Avalon. They end up recruiting him. They need some extra hands, some extra help. Also, another wrestler, Diamante.
Yes.
She's in there as well. And we'll talk about this in action, but I think she stole the show when it comes to action. We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
There was also a rock and roll legend in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying his name? Well, you just say his name because you know more about music than I do.
I'm
Damn
friends
it.
with him on Facebook. Hold on.
John Michael Thor. He's a Canadian legend in rock and roll.
We have to mention the villains, Lamar.
Well,
The main villain in particular was flamboyant,
boy,
I would say, and
man.
then all the henchmen. There was a thing in this. I guess if you're a henchman, you paint your face. I guess everyone had their face painted and stuff. So yeah.
Well, huh. If you're uh a henchman, you paint your face. If you're cooking up the drugs as a
Well,
woman,
we'll talk about that later, Lamar.
you paint some other stuff. We will talk about that later. But yes, a great group of characters on both
Yeah.
sides, I will say. So
Yeah, I like I'm going to give it 1 point. And what I liked about it was that there was an assortment of characters and they all kind of did something different. They had their own, special powers, let's say, or whatever.
yes,
Skills, special skills.
yes,
What do you
I
think?
agree. One, yes.
All right. Well, now we get to talk about action.
Boy, oh boy. Is there anybody who doesn't get like to shoot a gun or get shot in this movie? I mean, it's a lot. And we talked about this with Len Kabasinski. He knows how to use his budget because he's a micro budget
Yeah.
filmmaker. So, there were like a couple of like digital blood stuff, but it wasn't like too obvious. You could tell like they used real guns for certain things, but I felt like it flowed. And yeah, we talked about everybody knows how martial arts, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of action, a lot of fighting. And mentioned before Diamante. I thought she was the best.
okay.
Out of everyone, like, cause she literally, like, her stuff looked good. Like when she laid it in, like the kicks and stuff, and then she did a freaking Canadian destroyer, which is a wrestling maneuver, Lamar. So for that alone, I'm gonna give it 1 point.
I mean, I agree. Where can you go wrong when you have wrestlers and martial artists with guns?
Yeah.
Basically, yes.
Well, the next category is an interesting one. This movie had a certain kind of aesthetic. Well, so we're gonna rate the aesthetic / cinematography, the overall everything there. Because the thing about Len is we've seen a bunch of his stuff.
Yes.
His movies keep getting better and better, I would say.
Yes.
Because his last one, the Gauntlets, I really like that one. And it seems like he gets a little bit better with this one. This one had a very interesting aesthetic. There was a lot of like split screen stuff going on and motion graphics, like you were saying, and like kind of a different color scheme, I guess. So
lighting was different. It kind of had like that John Wick feel where they had different lighting for certain places. So it added to the movie. Yes.
But yeah, I like the color, because we see so many movies when we do our reviews where everything is just flat. And it just looks like boring after a while. It all looks like the same boring stuff. And it's like, at least with this, he was like, well, let me just put something different on here. Let's give it a different whatever.
All those other movies were like shot like My Room, very bland, nothing in the background. This one had, it's a secret recipe, Joe.
So I'm going to give him 1 point, not only for the overall look, for the continued improvement of his aesthetic and something different. So yeah, 1 point for me.
Agreed. Yes. And I think the next category, I mean, let's just go ahead. We're going to give them a 1 each. What's the next category, Joe?
Well, the next category, Lamar, is TNA.
Yes. Topics and agendas. They talked about a lot of things. Revenge. Having a deep military background is good for you, just in case you need to exact revenge. The women knew that and they did it. I mean, one had to do it coming out of a freaking shower. So that was appreciative. And the bad guys, it's a trope. You have the women make the drugs and they don't trust the women. So they do them. Not only they make them, cut the drugs in the nude, but these women had like paint on them and stuff.
Yeah, they were painted like with neon colors because, well, they were under a black light, Lamar.
Well, yeah. So you can see them and stuff like that. Me being the geek I am, I appreciated that there was a woman we are going to say an exhibitionist woman who was not clothed, but she had a tattoo of Nintendo.
Yep. Yeah, that was the thing, like, with the villain, like, all the women in his circle were just in a nude all the time, basically.
Hashtag free the nipple. You know, he's a bad drug dealer, but he has some, you know, moral. Yeah.
Well, Len knows how to make a movie. He knows what we're looking for in a movie, so I guess we're giving it 1 point for TNA.
Yes, yes.
Well, Lamar, that makes this an easy score to tally. This movie got a 5 out of 5.
You got to give Len credit. I mean, we can't say it enough. He's improved, you know, and I think, you know, with what he has, he knows how to shoot it. He knows, you know, who his audience is, like you said. Yeah.
Well, before we sign off, I was going to mention this with characters, but I forgot, so I'm going to bring it up now. A little piece of trivia.
Okay.
Perfect Turd podcast trivia for all the fans out there. There was a character in this movie, Lamar, a woman that was just jogging by.
I thought I didn't know. Go ahead.
Just the random jogger. What would you say? Like almost like an extra character?
Yes.
The jogging woman. Her name is Eileen Herbert in real life. She was an original member of the Perfect Turd podcast, at least before we started filming.
Yeah.
So a little piece of trivia and a little connection.
I did not expect that at all. I was like, is that her? Maybe she's another white woman. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I wasn't completely sure. So I'm glad you said something, because that would have been like, maybe I'm just tripping.
Yep, that was her. So Perfect Turd podcast just spreading all over the world into films, television, food, all kinds of things.
I'm down for it. Yes.
So there you go. All right, does that wrap this up then?
It does. And once again, rest in peace to Leo Fong. He was a B-movie legend, but this was his last film, but rest in peace to him.
Yep, yes. And check out Len's stuff on the Killer Wolf Patreon, right? All right, peace.
Deuces.